Greetings and salutations. It's been a while since I've done an Empyrion video. I was looking over the patch notes, and for the most part, a lot of it's really good. It kind of shows a gradual but slow progression. And I got to the weapons, and they had their shotgun, and they had their pistol, and their kind of assault rifle, I guess, rework or assault rifle rework. And when you look at the designs, you can tell that okay, there's kind of maybe I need to backstep. In my life, I've probably shot 10,000 rounds, 25,000 rounds. It's hard to accumulate that volume of expenditure over the course of a lifetime. And uh, you learn a lot about ballistics, and you learn a lot about weapon characteristics. Also have exposure with not only U.S. manufactured weapons, but also Russian and then Soviets manufactured weapons. And so they all have their own characteristics and behaviors. And when you see this, you realize in the art design, you realize that they've taken one model, and then they've kind of stretched it and morphed it into another model, and then stretched it and morphed it into another model. Like they've cut and paste this pistol handle, and done it over all three of them, which is fine because most weapons today, that are kind of built around the M4 or AR-15 platform are extremely modular, and that's the key word here is modularity. As stuff, they don't need to redesign a handle or a pistol grip, um, or a Picatinny rail system, or so that's acceptable to some extent. But when they go through here, you kind of realize, like, I'm guessing this is the shotgun by the barrel width and the thickness of the overall chassis. And so there's kind of, shotguns come in a 3 inch, like a two, there's a 2.5, there's like a mini, they call it like a Spanish mini. And then there's a 2.5 inch and a 3 inch slug. And this magazine right here really just looks like a pistol magazine. And then for the rifle, this looks like a traditional characteristic of the proper width of a like a 5.56 or an assault style magazine. And so when you get your head wrapped around assault style, you really got to realize that when you have to what you're saying is they're designed for a military application, and doctrinally military application are designed to take out people at a range between 200 to 500 meters. And so there's the ammunition is designed around those characteristics. And so shotguns have a much higher load, but they're designed to operate within a 50-meter radius or a 25-meter radius, depending on if you're running slugs or buckshot or bird or whatever munition type uh, that you're running. But so this looks accurate as far as a round that could sustain a 250 or a 300 meter, uh, 1 minute of angle kill radius. But there's a problem here is any rifle has to have a buttstock, and I think that this shows that the person who's designing this model doesn't understand firearms. They don't have a background in firearms. And so when you go to, like, let's say you go to Atlantic Firearms, or you go to Bud's Guns, or you go to any of these firearm, um, you go to your local gun store, and you see a weapon like this. The reason why it's like this is because they've imported in internationally, and the way that they've imported in is as a pistol. And so it's by design meant to be a rifle, but they couldn't get it into the United States unless they classified it as a pistol. And the way that they've classified it as a pistol is they've removed the buttstock. Now, one of the ways that are kind of that you get around it, or you make your pistol that is of a design of this nature, is you put a brace on it, and a brace effectively allows you to support your weapon, those higher caliber, and still be effective, because a weapon of this design, you can use the sling method, but it's not really, where you have a kind of a lasso type of sling and you pull it away from your body, and it creates enough stability to where you can kind of get a sight picture, and you can accurately hit a target at maybe 100 meters, but anything beyond that, it really becomes kind of gimmicky. And so, um, so the gist that I got is somebody went on to, some gun website, and they seen a weapon without a brace, and they didn't understand why it didn't have a brace, or a butt stock. And y- so, um, these really, anything that's a rifle, anything that you're going to call an assault rifle, needs to have a stock, right? It needs to have a stock. And also, you don't have any muzzle devices or muzzle brakes on here. You don't need for a shotgun, you don't need a muzzle brace, but or a muzzle device, a muzzle brake. But for an assault weapon, you really need, either that's going to be incorporated in as like an attachment system, but there really needs to be a muzzle brake. There's a flash hider and a muzzle brake, and if you don't know the difference, I can be happy to explain the difference of the two. But when you get to these rounds that are designed for more capability to kind of reach out farther for superior ballistics, you really need to kind of have that engineered into the system. And so a muzzle brake is one of the way to um, kind of compensate for muzzle rise and to help you accurately get back on target. But the third thing is this slant. I know this is a design cue, but this slant right here actually, um, okay, so when there's a reason why you hear this term like banana clip, and typically magazines they'll have a slant, but it'll actually be the other way, and that is designed to kind of preposition those rounds in the right posture to have it feed into the chamber. And unless this is some kind of block, but there's when I see this, I really realize that it's pretty evident. I think that's a better word. It's pretty evident that the person designing these weapons doesn't have a fundamental understanding of how firearms work. The eight functions of a firearm, feeding, chambering, extracting, ejecting. They don't grasp the whole holistic picture of the characteristics, ballistics, minute of angle, um, you know, and in a space game, there's also another proponent to this. Is the Soviets have developed uh, guns that shoot in space, but what they realized is that when they shot, let's say like a 50 cal equivalent, a 12.7 millimeter equivalent, or it pushed the spacecraft. It actually pushed the spacecraft, so they would have to come up with an energy source. They had to hit their boosters in order to compensate for the the projectile leaving their weapon system. And so, uh yeah, it's kind of doo doo, to be honest. I'm not trying to hurt nobody's feelings, but it's kind of doo doo. And to kind of retie on this point, it's you can go to Unity, and I know you don't want to purchase assets, but you can go to Unity, and I was looking just to kind of see like a comparable, like just come up with a DLC, charge $5, and I talked about this in some previous videos in the past. But come up with a DLC. Let me pull in I was doing some searching just to kind of see like sci-fi guns, and just to see what kind of assets are out there on Unity. And I found, let me drag this into the right browser. I found this. Let me make sure I'm looking at this correctly. And so I was just kind of looking through Unity assets just to see what kind of stuff was out there, on the market to see what what was relevant and the kind of what kind of packages were available. Like here you can see this is your M4. This is like your 2004 M4, and you see how the magazine kind of has that slant that's in the opposite direction of your model is because those rounds are kind of meant to be fed a certain way. And by the time they get to the top, the bullets are canted. The front of the bullet is canted to where it's already lined up with the front of the to be put into the chamber. So as that bolt cycles back, it grabs it and it doesn't require a lot of additional mechanisms or like mechanical force to just slides right into that chamber as that bolt cycles through its cycle. Um, and so like here's a really good 3D model that already exists, and I'm just kind of looking through some sci-fi. This is a really good one, and if you kind of look at the contrast, and historically, if you wanted to go for a sci-fi element, Hollywood has used the German weapons. It's like most of the Star Wars stuff that you see are here you go again. Here that magazine can't, because the front of the round is tapered. It's kind of a triangle. Just think of like a triangle, and it's tapered. And this is not accurate at all. That's not accurate at all. But the model's okay. Here we go. Here's some, you know. Oh, I don't know what that is. Let me go back. There's no back. But yeah, I was just kind of looking through some of this stuff. And if you really want to, let me see, let's see what they, I typed in sci-fi, Unity sci-fi gun assets. I really wanted to see what kind of give some examples. This is all kind of Vietnam era stuff. Got your 8Ks, and your Dragonoffs, your old style M16 with your grenade launcher, and then your M60. Uh, Let me see what they got here. Like here's, this is your Chris Vector, and this is one of those kind of examples. Now, the reason why this is canted in such a way is because it's using a Glock mag, and the Glocks are of a German design, and the German kind of um the Austrian engineering is pretty prolific in the world. And when you get to do your research, you'll realize that they were really about 30 years, 40 years ahead in their research and development and manufacturing than the rest of the world. They came up with that Stug 44, and then the Russians borrowed heavily from it to kind of come up with their AK-40, kind of make a dumbed down AK, their version of an AK-47. I'm kind of trying to find some good examples. So really, I wanted to kind of close out here is, you could have, I'm going to use kind of a modern day example. You could have a 9mm bullet, and if you put that 9mm bullet in a regular pistol and you shoot it, you'll get a velocity of about 1,000 feet per second or 950 feet per second. A 115 grain bullet. But if you take that same bullet and you put it in a pistol caliber carbine, which is like an M4, an assault rifle, but it's calibered and chambered, and it uses the magazine of that same pistol that you just shot it out of. So everything, the munition's the same. It's just shot out of a different platform with a much longer barrel. Um, you'll pick up 20 to 30% more velocity and accuracy and distance. And so you really kind of need to get into, um, so like an average rule of thumb, for every inch of barrel that you add, you'll increase your velocity by 36 meters per second. Just kind of at 30 meters per second. Every bullet has its own spectrum that's different. But if you just, as just a general rule of thumb, every inch gives you 30 meters per second. And so if you go from a 6-inch barrel to a 20-inch barrel, that's, what is that, another 14 inches? And so that's pretty significantly. So you've picked up another 300 or 400 feet per second in your velocity. So that allows for that round, instead of having to drop off in kind of an efficiency of 150-meter effectiveness. Now you've taken that bullet out to 200 meters or 250 meters effectiveness for shooting the same bullet to the same bullet with using a different platform. And so that's the way to think about this. Is you have two bullet systems or three bullet systems. So let's say you use 9 millimeter, because 9 millimeter is pretty prolific and it's used all over the world. It's a NATO round. Let's say you use, for your salt, you use 5.56. It's also a NATO. Of course, the Soviets and Warsaw Pact have their own variant of this, but they still use the 9, but they use the 7.62 by 39, or the what is the 5.4 by 40, was it 5.54 by 45? It's a smaller variant, but they have their own uh kind of collective treaty ammunition packages that they use. And so it's kind of like you have your small, medium, and large variant. So your small is your 9, your medium is your 5.56, and your large is your 308 or your 7.62 by 5.1. And that's it. And then out of those three munition packages, you probably have about 40 different weapon systems that shoot those bullets collectively around the world. Some are like defense weapons, some of them are assault weapons, some of them are sniper rifles. But they all pretty much exist within the realm of small, medium, and large munition types. And even though the characteristics and the jobs are entirely different, and that's kind of lacking in this. Let me go back to this design right here. That's really kind of lacking in this design. You can see that. I know I'm kind of reiterating. You can see whoever developed this model doesn't really have a foundational understanding of how weapon systems work, and maybe they've just found something on the internet. If I were to say what this closest looks like by today's standard, I would say it's a SIG 5.56, and I'll pull that up real quick. Okay, let's see here. I'll get an image of a SIG 5.56, and this is probably a pretty uh, accurate representation of what this weapon looks like. And they actually make this in two different versions, as you can see. Make sure I'm still recording. Two different versions. If I let me minimize this. If I take this and this, you can see some similarities there. And see here, they got a flash hider. It's not a muzzle brake, it's a flash hider. And you can see how the magazine is tapered, right? And then they're using kind of the even though SIG is an American company, they have um, a German background, so you can kind of see that they're using that German angle that is pretty prolific in the kind of Czech German. Um, the American style of weapons uses this more kind of, I think it's like a 90-degree, more of a straight up and down angle, where your Eastern European is more like this. This is very common in the Czech. And this platform is a homogeny of the AK, and which is the Soviet style of design, and the AR-15 style of design. So here's another. This one's got a buttstock. Um, but this is designed to be sold, even though it's a rifle. I don't like to say that because there's so much political. But this is a pistol. The only reason this is a pistol is to get it into the U.S., and then you, as the consumer, can do your tax stamp and pay your $200 and then convert it into a short-barreled rifle, an SBR. And that's really what this is designed for. This is designed for a continuation product. Um, and another thing to take in is most military rifles have a 14.5-inch barrel, right? And that gets them to that 250 meter kind of designed effectiveness, where where if you go, you put it out to 16-inch like the old M16, you have a, um, a greater lethality at a farther range, but at a trade-off of more weight, and also kind of more of a encumbersome when you're trying to do like room clearing or vehicle operations. Getting a 40-inch rifle in and out of a vehicle is can almost cost a life versus the increased capability, because you can't get it out of the vehicle. Meanwhile, you're getting derped. So something like this has just a more um, robust all around, purpose. And they've kind of, some of the ways they've worked around that is they'll do these folding stocks. They'll do these stocks where you push the button and the stock folds over. And I don't recommend like, here's an example of that. I don't recommend that you try to model that or get into that, get into the weeds on that. But it's just important that you kind of have a holistic understanding of how firearms work. And you here see another example how the magazine is, with the NATO ammunition, the magazines are more linear. They're more of a, and when you get into the AKs, they're even more banana shaped. Um, they're even more banana shaped, but they still maintain that same kind of cant. Um, and the reason why they have that banana shape is because of this kind of triangle shaped overall. There's that gradual taper to the end of the bullet, and that affects the shape of this magazine. And if you go back to a, let me just type in 5.56 mag, and let's see what that shows me. And if and the reason why this is shaped this way is because these bullets have less of a taper. The taper is really at the end, and so that doesn't affect, um, it doesn't affect the curvature of the magazine as much. And so it's important to understand that when it's just all about that holistic understanding of how firearms work, their capability, their design philosophy. And if you're going to make, and I say all this has playing. Let's see what my Empyrion game time is. My Empyrion game time is, I have not played it in a while. Sitting at 600 hours. So I've put an extensive amount of time into Imperium, and there's a couple things that are really kind of lackluster. Like the weapons have long been needed to be revisited and updated. But I can't kind of see it as like a shot in the dark. It's not a good, it's not a good uh, it's a missed opportunity to get it right. And so, you know eh, I think you need some help. I think the folks need some help. Reach out to some gun guys, and look at how Doom Nukem plays. Look at how some of these other games, Fallout 4 is a good. They have good gun mechanics. And try to match. There's a lot of other Unity games that have some really good gun mechanics, and try to. I would make that my top priority, is to get that gun gameplay really dialed in to where it feels right. It feels correct. And then my second thing I would do is try to fix the AI. Like the monsters AI, instead of running back and forth in a Z pattern, it's a little bit more, I guess, realistic. Like they have one behavior, and then once they get to 30% life, they change behavior and they try to run away because they know that they're in trouble. They take a defensive stance. So they go offensive until they get low on life, then they take a defensive stance. And and so if you're fighting a squad of people, it kind of changes the dynamic of the gameplay significantly. And I think the combination of the getting the gun mechanics dialed in, and the AI, so that way you have a kind of a more holistic, aggressive, competitive gameplay with the AI. Uh, I know that a lot of other games have a hard time with this as well. But I think that would be a good where'd the patch go right here. I think that'd be a really a lot of this looks really good. I'm glad there's the continuous development on it. But when I seen this, I was like, oh, poor retards, man. They just don't get it. They don't get it. They don't know. They just don't know. But as always, I'm not trying to be super critical of the game. I'm not trying to give the folks there at Imperium. I think they do wonderful work. I just think they need to have a holistic understanding of what when they're developing a product around a certain subject. I think they need to have a good foundational understanding of what they're developing and kind of the characteristics involved and some of the design principles of why there's 300 years of firearm evolution and development around the world, and all the way that different countries look at the doctrinal uses of those weapons. And you can deep dive into this stuff. But and there's some cultures in the world that are prolific with their weapon designs. The Germans are one of them. The Germans are pretty prolific with their weapon design, especially pre-World War II and during World War II. They were easily 30 years ahead of everybody else. um and the design philosophy is completely different than like the Soviet Union and the Russians, where they just wanted reliability at any cost. If reliability was their number one priority. When you look at the Russians, I mean the Germans, it was capability above all else, right? So there's different design philosophies, and understanding that. But and if they could incorporate, as they do these different factions, and if they build these different weapon systems out for these factions, if they could kind of adopt some of those same principles, where like the Zeraks could have weapons that were super accurate and but expensive and rare to come by. But then if you go with a different faction, super reliable, cheap, and but not accurate, right? It's just a pray and spray. It's a minute of man instead of minute of angle. Well, anyways, I hope this video helps. I know talking about firearms is kind of taboo in society, especially with the younger generations. Usually people's heads explode. But I hope this conversation helps the game overall. I hope that you don't get butt hurt, and you understand that there's a lot of people understand this kind of philosophy uh, about firearms. And so if you're developing, you kind of need to raise the bar a little bit. But as always, thanks for watching.